Spirit Airlines has been in the news all the time lately in the aviation industry. Today, they're going to be making yet another appearance, but Frontier is going to be as well as they make a third bid attempt to merge with Spirit Airlines. What does this mean for the industry? Is the third time actually going to be the charm? Is this even going to happen? Today, we're going to talk about all the implications of this and what it means. So let's get into this, everybody. Not once, not twice, but Frontier is now submitted a third proposal to merge with Spirit Airlines. Today, we're going to talk about all the implications of this and really what it means here. It's been very fascinating to see, all the chatter going on with Spirit. Obviously, we had the whole JetBlue deal that took multiple years to go through and it ended up not going through. And of course, now we have all the additional situations with the financial troubles, and now Frontier's coming in once again to try to make a merge attempt. So really appreciate this article here from airlinegeeks.com. They always do a fantastic job with their articles, and today we're going to talk about all of what we see here. Really nice shot here, this Frontier A320neo, but nevertheless, let's go ahead and get into this, everybody. Frontier is looking to acquire Spirit again. In SEC filings on Wednesday, the two ultra low-cost carriers said they resumed merge talks on January 7th. As part of the deal, Frontier offered the issuance of $40 million principal amounts of debt and 19% of the carrier's equality to holders secured notes. Frontier added that a combination with Spirit would bring unmatched benefits. Our proposal represents a compelling opportunity for your creditors and stockholders to receive a significant premium for their investments with Spirit, with greater value than proposed transactions as described in the plan. A letter said, quote, "We firmly believe that our proposal is the best interest of your creditors and stockholders, and that they will benefit from your corporation with us to allow them to realize the benefits of our proposal," end quote. And obviously that's just detailed talk there of what it means for the stockholders. Here's a really beautiful shot of the Spirit A321neo getting produced over there in the Airbus land. So that's really cool. So here we go for the third attempt. Frontier and Spirit have engaged in merger talks before, and as recent as November of 2024. So of course we had that early proposal I did a video on back in like April of 2022, I think it was. The talk in November once the JetBlue situation fell through, and of course now we're back to it here in late January or late February of 2025. But these talks were later discontinued as Spirit filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection on November 18th. The two carriers also attempted the merge in 2022, the one that I referenced. However, JetBlue outbid Frontier in a $3.8 million deal that a U.S. judge ultimately threw out. So it was crazy to see that whole talk go on with JetBlue for multiple years, and obviously it ended up falling through. But let's take a look here at what Frontier's graph looks like in their proposal. So they claim that it would be a winning formula. Now, there's obviously quite a few components to dive into with this, so let's go ahead and take a look. First, compelling proposal to acquire Spirit to create America's first at-scale, low-cost competitor to the Big Four. So, of course, referring to American, Delta, United, and Southwest with that. So, with creating an airline with long-term viability to compete with more effectively, this merger would make the airlines the fifth largest, growing to 100 million annual passengers, which, by the way, that would be more than the Atlanta International Airport by itself, and 400 plus aircraft within a few years. Both carriers have many Airbus A320neo family on order, so of course they would grow very fast with that current situation. Top 3 carrier in more than half of the top 25 US airports. I think this statistic is extremely important to note for an upcoming graph that we're going to look at here with the overlapping cities that Frontier and Spirit fly to. So it would be very interesting to see this argument go up in the US court, because obviously they don't want to create a monopoly, and obviously both these carriers merging would have that argument initially. However, I'm going to show you a bunch of networks where there is a good amount of overlap in these networks. You're not going to get around it as a ULCC in the United States. You're going to have to fly to Orlando, Las Vegas, so on and so forth. However, there is a couple of different markets where I think they can make enough of an argument to possibly get this into court a couple stages down the road. I'm not an expert on what that process looks like, but what I can say is that there would be a chance to get a couple stages down the road if they made the argument correctly, like they kind of did the last time, but it got through out pretty quick. Meaningful increases presence in numerous major US markets is certainly the truth. Offering more low fares and premium options to travelers. This is a really good point that you wouldn't initially think of. So it talks about the low fares to consumers and enabling billions in savings, which obviously you can only do so much data study from, a non-merger perspective, or, obviously they would merge, but before the merger, there's only so much you can do when you're judging on that if it would actually save that much, but the chances are it probably would. Increase frequent flyer and loyalty programs, which it certainly would make it more comprehensive, so that would be interesting to see. Enables more reliable services through operating efficiencies, which this is a really good point, and delays would go down as a result, most likely with more resources. Enhanced travelers experience for customers, it certainly would provide this as well, and there's different premium seats between the two carriers, so keep this all in mind. Delivering value from financial stakeholders, creating compelling financial opportunities for Spirit creditors and stakeholders. Not a very good financial time right now for Spirit, so of course they need all the help they can get in that regard. And then provides greater value and recovery relative to Spirit's standalone reconstruction plan. So obviously this particular box was not really discussed in that 2022 proposal and was briefly discussed in 2024, but obviously now it is a huge deal in the merger. Significant, I'm gonna do my best to say this, hopefully, synergy potential, never heard that word before, but anyway, opportunity to participate in upside potential of owning larger, more comprehensive airlines, estimating that might just be revenues, another big word for revenues, but anyway, synergies of 600+ million, which I think that's probably what it's trying to say, operating profit. So yeah, it's a really interesting thought to have, and that was Frontier's big graph there on what went into it. In a January 11th response to Frontier's initial letter, Spirit said the letter fell short. 400 million in debt is less than half of what would be provided to credit holders under its reorganization plan, the company said. So Frontier pretty much lowballed them to start. Frontier noted that no agreement has been reached between the two airlines. Ongoing discussions may not result in a deal, the carriers added in its filing. Should a transaction be finalized, Frontier and Spirit would become the 5th largest airline in the U.S., with plans to serve over 100 million passengers a year, and a huge shout out to Ryan Ewing for creating this. So yeah, it's certainly interesting to see that, Spirit kind of was offended by the low ball from Frontier. Pretty much just like their whole corporate strategy over there at Frontier, they kind of just lowballed them. And I don't know if I've released it yet, but regardless, I have a video coming out very shortly regarding Frontier and their inconsistencies regarding their network planning for the routes and whatnot. Now let's go ahead and talk about, I need to make sure I'm still active on both these pages. They're kind of important for this discussion. Okay, now that we have these ready for in a moment, let's go ahead and take a look at the network overlap. So these are screenshots from Flight Connections here. The top graph is Spirit and the bottom graph is Frontier. And I think there's one major takeaway outside of the volume here. So obviously you can see that there's quite a few routes there in the, same vicinity. But the major takeaways that I can see here is that Frontier not only serves more transcontinental routes, you can certainly see that comprehensive graph there at the bottom showing all the routes east to west, so on and so forth, but they also serve several more cities and with less than 30 destinations served. So this is several markets across the US. They used to be more, they did terminate some of those, but they still have several markets that are small hub airports, this being like Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota, Oklahoma City, El Paso, Tucson, and a very extensive list of these. As you can see, Spirit only has a couple of those. The only 4 that are on this list actually are Pensacola, or actually there's 5, I guess. Buffalo, Pensacola, Birmingham, Alabama, Reno, and Boise, Idaho. That's pretty much it. Otherwise, Spirit only has a couple of routes. I don't know what the red ones are here, by the way. I guess they might actually serve a couple of routes on whatever that is. But regardless of the case, as you can see, there's so much more connectivity in the Frontier network. Now, also do keep in mind that a huge model of Spirit's operating is the daily services that they offer. Frontier typically does not offer many services daily, excluding a couple of very high demand routes like Denver to Los Angeles. Spirit does it on quite a few of their routes, like Birmingham, Alabama has a daily service, Buffalo, New York has a daily service, Rochester, New York's another one up there that I think they served as well. So there's several, or actually might be Rochester, I'm not sure. They serve one of those cities, but regardless of the case, they serve a bunch of these places daily. So obviously their route network is not going to look as impressive from this graph, but they go for more of that volume outlook compared to Frontier, who's going for more destinations along with the volume. So you're certainly going to notice that, and also definitely note the comprehensive routes that Frontier has in the West. They have several more destinations, but as you can tell, Spirit has a very comprehensive route network out of Las Vegas and Los Angeles that still matches what you have there for Frontier. But I don't have a number in front of me, I don't have time to go research it, but we can just take a look at a couple of particular examples here. Let's go ahead and start here with the Frontier route map. Here's what the Orlando graph looks like. As you can tell, they serve several destinations from here, especially to the upper Midwest. Whereas we look at Spirit, for example, and not every single city was the same. There were some that were, but not every single city is the same. So you definitely have to note that when we're looking at these graphs. Let's take a look at Las Vegas. It's another really good example here. As you can tell, there's certainly plenty going on here for Frontier, but then when we go back over here, I'm sorry for Spirit, but Frontier, as you can see, this is the current landscape. Oh man, we love our phone calls, but nevertheless, let's go ahead and take a look at this graph a little bit more. So let's get back to Las Vegas before we kind of got rushed there. So here's the Las Vegas map here for Frontier. And as you can tell, it's not, there's definitely routes here, but, with the Spirit, for example, just comparing these, you can definitely see that there's more destinations served, like those two there in Texas that are additional. You also have, I think, Nashville, Charlotte, and Atlanta, or some Frontier don't serve too, or, not everyone, I'm not exactly right. I'm just pointing out some that caught my eye. So obviously there's a bunch going on here that you definitely want to note. Let's also note an operation like Detroit, for example. Here's Spirit. As you can tell, they have a bunch of routes out of Detroit. Well, Frontier doesn't have many routes out of Detroit. In fact, they had more than what I thought, to be honest. But as you can tell, there's several Florida cities there, along with a couple of other Midwestern cities that Frontier doesn't serve. So there's still a bunch of new markets. Once again, Spirit doesn't serve Sioux Falls. Spirit doesn't serve Oklahoma City. Spirit doesn't serve Northwest Arkansas. Spirit doesn't serve Cedar Rapids. Spirit doesn't serve Syracuse, New York. Certainly plenty of opportunities here. And let's even look at an operation like Houston, George Bush. As you can tell, there's definitely going to be overlap between the two here. But even with that, just look at all the routes Spirit has to the Mexico region, for example. So as you can tell, in Latin America, there's certainly plenty of opportunity there that Frontier doesn't already have. So there's a bunch of that going on. Once again, Spirit has a bunch of these operations that Frontier doesn't have either. So that's big. And then obviously you got to look at the Fort Lauderdale market. I don't even know if Frontier flies to Fort Lauderdale. They do, but in a very limited capacity. So there's plenty of potential here. I certainly think it's possible to get through a couple stages of court. We will even see if they agree to take it to court. So that'll be super interesting. I do think that there's definitely potential here. I love airline variety as an aviation enthusiast. At the same time, though, from a sake of the consumer standpoint, if they really can get these fares at a reasonable level, since there's not too much overlap, and that really helps out Spirit in the long term, because Frontier financially is actually doing fairly good. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at the very least, but nevertheless, we'll continue to move forward one step at a time and continue to see what happens. With that being said, that'll do for today's video, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. My name's CM Aviation. Take it easy, everybody. Stay safe. Trust the process. Do you love and love you do. My name's CM Aviation. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon as CM Aviation is signing off.